Byjack, a B2B platform for agricultural commodities, has raised $12 million in a Series A round of funding. This round was led by RTP Global, and existing investors Omnivore, Omidyar and Sequoia Capital also participated in this round. Google slashes its marketing budget by half for the second half of the year. The tech major decides to freeze hiring for full-time and even contract employees. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos is back at the steering wheel of the retail giant as it battles the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. Bezos takes charge of day-to-day operations as the e-commerce giant faces a huge surge in demand, supply chains issues, and even worker unrest. Well, those were the headlines we were tracking for you today. Hello and welcome to Startup Street. I'm Megha Vishwanath. Now, the battle to rope in local retailers and neighborhood stores in India has begun. A day after Facebook invested $5.7 billion in Reliance Jio platforms, where JioMart will partner with WhatsApp and connect consumers with local Kiranas, online retailer Amazon has rolled out a pilot program called Local Shops on the platform. The e-commerce giant plans to invest 10 crore rupees into the program and has onboarded 5,000 local stores across the country so far. To talk further, I am now joined by Gopal Pillai, VP Seller Service, Amazon India. Gopal, welcome to the show. Now, Amazon, as I said, is launching Local Shops on Amazon. That's what the program is called, to bring in retailers and shops online for consumers. So tell us how this model works. What does it mean for your users in terms of faster deliveries or more product categories? What have the learnings been so far, considering the fact that this pilot has been active for 6 months as we speak?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on the program. Yeah, we are super excited to launch Local Shops on Amazon. As you know, we've been in India for close to 7 years now, and we have been innovating on behalf of our seller customers. That's how Amazon.call, Seller Flex, Easy Ship, and so many other programs were innovated. In this particular case, we took Local Shop, the offline retailers, as a customer and constructed this program. And we started piloting about 6 months ago.
Correct.
And we have more than 5,000 retailers as part of this program, plus in hundreds of cities. The way the program works is any offline retailer can opt into this program where we are leveraging the advantages of the retailers, offline retailers we work with, and the power of Amazon. So it's a best of both worlds. It's no longer offline versus online, it's offline plus online.
That's a great segue for my next question, because online to offline, O2O, seems like that is where the next wave of commerce in India is going to be coming in from. As we mentioned that, this was not a decision that you've taken overnight. You've been working on this pilot for 6 months. But talk to us about some of the learnings that came across, and do you see this as the next big trend in commerce in India?
This is definitely a new beginning for offline retailers, and because it's going to help the way they can leapfrog into the digital economy through this. And we all know offline retailers have services that they can offer, whether it's the installation support or a data transfer service. In addition, they have the ability to deliver to the local customers in a structured manner. So we are kind of blending in their capabilities along with Amazon's reach in India, because as Amazon is the #1 traffic site and the most visited website, we are able to give much more customers, not only from the locale they are in, but the other parts of the city, and they can deliver using their own capabilities. In addition, they can go nationally or even in some cases globally using Amazon's transportation services.
What is, Gopal, Amazon's take on the disruption to business given the current lockdown and the policy uncertainty? Because that seems to be one of the biggest roadblocks for players like you.
See, our #1 focus is to serve the customers in need with the priority products as advised by the government. And our program, we have multiple formats here. One is Amazon Fresh, Amazon Pantry, and our core marketplace, through which we are completely focused on essential products and getting them delivered to our customers who are in need. And the local shops program played a small role in delivering products coming from the local merchants to the customers in the nearby locations.
Okay, talk to us about how you're prepping for life once we have semblance of normalcy. You did hire thousands of warehouse and delivery partners to cope with the surge in demand post the 20th of April, but of course that clause was revoked. So while the policy changed, are you continuing to hold on to that workforce that you had hired?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We are continuing to, we are prepping ourselves to make sure that customers are getting the products they are looking for post-lockdown. It is important to note that the life is not going to be immediately going back to BAU. There is going to be a ramp-up period.
Sure.
And we need to make sure that the small businesses, the hundreds and thousands of small businesses that depend on Amazon are able to address the millions of customers we have in India, while we wanted to make sure that, that we are helping the customers maintain the social distancing, while we are able to give livelihoods to hundreds and thousands of small businesses across India.
Okay. Gopal, can you quickly tell me what has the impact been on small sellers on your platform? We understand that you have cut the sell for now, but considering the fact that you work with these small sellers, what has the impact been in terms of business, in terms of revenues on them?
Yeah, they are very much impacted. So we conducted a survey weeks ago, and we got a response from 3,000 plus sellers. The number one problem is the significant reduction in their sales. So they are severely impacted by that. And second is access to inventory, because they have lean inventory. A lot of them are working in just-in-time model, and whether it's to manufacture them or to procure them, they are having difficulties. And because of this, they have access to their impact on kind of the working capital and cash flow issues are impacted. The last but not least, access to people, whether to get the curfew passes to operate the stores they are in,
right,
or the people to employ. So that's continuing to be the problems for the small businesses.
No, for sure. These are all on-ground realities. But before I wrap up this conversation, Gopal, quickly tell me if there are any predictions that you can make or you folks at Amazon are making for the e-commerce space for the rest of the year. O2O is definitely a trend to watch out for. But what else?
I think e-commerce is going to play a critical role during lockdown, as well as we come out of the lockdown. It's going to help customers who are not going to be immediately out there, and they're going to be very careful in where they walk out and doing the necessary stuff. But e-commerce can help them access to the products and services in the comfort of their homes,
right,
while maintaining the social distancing, and at the same time help small businesses across the country.
All right, Gopal, thank you so much for sharing those details with us, and we wish you the very best with all the plans that you've laid out for the year 2020. With that, we'll have to move on to our next segment. Now, biopharma startup Bugwork Research has raised $7.5 million, led by University of Tokyo Edge Capital and Global Brain Corporation in Japan, along with Agripharma Holdings, Agripharma Holdings from South Africa. They plan to use these funds to take a drug candidate from a preclinical to a clinical trial stage. And we have with us the co-founder and CEO of Bugworks, Anand, on the show with us. Anand, welcome to Startup Street. Congrats on the fundraise. It's refreshing to hear this in the current times that we are in, and we understand that this will help you push your intravenous drug candidate to the first phase of clinical trial, as I said in my introduction. Tell us a little more about this drug. How will it be used, and when will the clinical trials begin?
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me on your show. It's wonderful. It's a great honor to be here. So I just want to tell our audience, it's been about 50 years since a new antibiotic was invented, a broad-spectrum antibiotic, and Bugworks has the opportunity to crack the code of the superbug. We are a 25-member company based out of Bangalore with operations in Adelaide, Australia, and US. And we have come out with a new method of cracking the code of the superbug and inventing a new antibiotics that can work across many bacterial superbugs. If everything goes well, we will start clinical trials second half of this year in Australia. Clinical trials are a long, complex, expensive process.
Right.
What we are starting this year is the phase 1, which is safety. If safety is done and goes through fine, we'll come back to India to do a phase 2 trial for pneumonia. So we're very, very excited. First time in a couple of generations, a breakthrough product that can save millions of lives. So we are very excited.
Okay, thank you for explaining that so well and de-jargonizing the entire process for our viewers. But you know, you're working on multiple products under the Gyrox series. What are the other applications that you're looking at? If you can explain that to us.
Sure. So we have multiple verticals in the company. We have figured out a platform called Gyrox, as you correctly mentioned. The first product from Gyrox will be an IV, intravenous, for very serious hospital infections like pneumonia. As you guys know, pneumonia is a problem even for COVID patients, except it's a viral pneumonia, but you also have a bacterial pneumonia that goes with that. So the first products will be for pneumonia, and subsequent products could be for community infections, urinary tract infections, sexually transmitted diseases, community pneumonia. And we're also working with certain governments in the world as a solution for bioterrorism. Next generation, there is a possibility that bacteria and virus could be used as biological weapons, and there are very few solutions against that. We're one of just a handful of companies looking at biodefense as a solution. All of this coming from the same platform, Gyrox.
Okay. Given that you mentioned COVID and the fact that we are currently in a health pandemic, how do you see some of the drugs that you're working on to address, you know, as you mentioned, future health issues? But are there any drugs at this point that you see that can be used, or is this work in progress?
Okay, excellent question. I'll give you two answers. I wish we started the company 10 years ago.
Okay.
Then we may have had a drug for COVID. We will definitely serve the world when the next pandemic, God forbid, happens, bacterial or bacterial pandemic happens. There are many drugs that are going through clinical trials right now.
Right.
A vaccine is going to take 12 to 18 months. But I'm hoping that in the next 60 days, we'll hear of some drugs being tested all over the world that are therapies, drugs that will help mankind right now. Bacterial infections, which, by the way, kill 1 million people per year. It's a silent tsunami or a silent pandemic. That's what we're addressing. And I'd like your audience to know that if things go so well, Bugworks will also be working on antivirals, because we realized what the COVID has done. And the next time a pandemic happens, we want to be ready for both virals and bacteria.
All right, startups to rescue yet again. And as you said, the 12 to 18 months is the timeline that we're hearing generally, but many are working on a drug for COVID-19 as we speak. But thank you so much for sharing those details and speaking to us right here on Startup Street. It's now time for a quick break, but up next, 1 in at least 5 Indians have been facing mental health issues during this lockdown. How are people coping with stress? What are organizations doing to help people tackle with the hardships? We find out on a special conversation on the other side. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still with us on Startup Street. Now, various healthcare experts are reporting a steep rise in mental health issues since the coronavirus outbreak. A recent survey conducted by the Indian Psychiatry Society revealed that there is up to a 20% increase in cases related to mental health issues. The report further stated that at least 1 out of every 5 Indian is suffering from mental illness. During the nationwide lockdown, in fact, business owners and profitability. Today, we will explore ideas on how to keep yourself and the rest of the workforce around you motivated so that they can navigate through this crisis in a completely healthy and a stable way. On the hot seat today, I am now joined by Dr. Shyam Bhatt of Live, Love, Laugh Foundation, and Saurabh Arora, founder and CEO of Librate. Gentlemen, thanks a lot for speaking to us on Startup Street. First up, Dr. Bhatt, it is clear by now that social distancing and isolation is affecting the mental health of people. But what are the reasons behind it, and how can they cope with that, given the current circumstances?
Sure, absolutely. I'm really glad that you've raised this topic and we're talking about it because it is a huge issue. We know this from previous pandemics, and there was a recent study published in the Lancet journal March 14th,
Right.
where they looked at 24 studies and from previous outbreaks like SARS, H1N1, and so on. And what we know is that when there's a pandemic of this nature and that results in lockdown and quarantine, we see at least up to 3 times increase in the number of cases of people with mental and psychological distress, whether it's anxiety, depression, or substance abuse. And, what is startling and something to keep in mind is that these effects go far beyond the pandemic, in the sense that even 3 to 4 years after the pandemic is over, you see elevated levels of substance abuse, alcohol dependence, anxiety, and so on. So it's definitely a huge issue. And social distancing, of course, we are social animals, human beings, and being in touch with others, being connected with others is an essential part of our mental health.
Right.
So firstly, let's just underline the fact that it is an unusual and stressful situation. So what we and everyone will respond to it in different ways. There are some people who are more prone to feeling the ill effects of this, especially people with pre-existing anxiety and depression.
True.
People with poorer social support and poorer connections with other people, they are the ones at risk, So the key things, how do you manage this? Well, firstly, and I think this is really important, it's to acknowledge that this is a difficult time.
Okay.
To not pretend that this is life as usual, and this sort of empathy to oneself, the acknowledgement that there's something difficult going on in one's life, is actually a very important first step in starting to cope with it.
Right.
Because otherwise, people can try various forms of denial, and that doesn't work.
Okay.
The second thing is to take care of your health, body, and mind. And so having a very clear structure in your day is essential. To not treat this like an extended holiday, but to have a structure in place that is keeping in with what is happening right now,
Okay.
So when you get up, when you sleep, when you eat, when you work, all of those things should be very structured, and one shouldn't, end up binge watching things or just surfing social media and so on. When I said take care of your body, the body and mind are connected. And we know that, but I think many of us don't practice that.
Right.
Exercising every day is so important for mental health that it should be a part of your routine.
Sure. So everything that you said, one is, of course, acceptance that these are difficult times, and empathy for self are extremely important points. But let me, at this point, rope in Saurabh. Saurabh, can you tell us what are the kind of queries that you're getting at Liberate? Are there more queries on mental health or physical health? What are the kind of results that you've been seeing?
Yeah, so at Liberate, we cater to a host of health issues spanning childcare to elderly care. And during the lockdown specifically, we are seeing 3 types of queries surging on the platform. One is problems arising due to limited mobility and higher screen time. So these issues are, joint pain, backache, headache, dry eyes.
Yeah.
Second is due to the nature of the disease itself. So many people are aware that you should have now, improved immunity. So a lot of people are asking queries on how do I increase my immunity?
Yeah.
And the third, which is the biggest one, is the mental health. So we have seen as a platform a 45% increase in mental health queries. Now, instead of just living at home, the world is now learning to do everything from home.
Yeah.
And it has resulted in people losing physical social contact with other people. And the situation has led to the issues, mental issues amongst people who are now feeling insecure. They're feeling unproductive, they are overwhelmed, and literally confused about the current state. And human mind doesn't cope well with uncertainty.
Yeah.
So these are the major queries people are asking on Liberate.
That's right. Human mind does not cope well with uncertainty. And Dr. Shyam, let's then talk about small business owners and the workforce at large. They are currently facing multiple hardships. Many fear losing their jobs, and of course some of the other challenges that Saurabh just listed out. What advice do you have for the business sector at large who are feeling insecure, who are feeling unproductive and just uncertain at this point?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's no doubt that uncertainty is a key stressor, so much so that in research studies, we find that humans prefer certain discomfort, certain pain to uncertainty. So uncertainty is that distressing for the brain. And so what that means for leadership is because the buck stops with the leaders, and it's not easy being a leader, obviously, at any time, but it's particularly hard during this time because leaders, by and large are used to control. They're used to having information that they require to make decisions. And the more used you are to control uncertainty, the more threatened and stressed you will feel with uncertainty.
Right.
So one of the key things is, what do you do? Well, firstly, it is important for the leader to find calm within, because for the people that he or she leads, it's really important to feel that sense of safety and stability emotionally from the leader. The second thing is, as a business, to really cut down uncertainty as much as possible. If you're going to have to make cuts, then do so quickly and rather than stagger it painfully over months. I know that seems harsh, but the uncertainty of whether or not I'm going to be employed, and if the communication isn't clear and isn't clear from the top, that's going to increase uncertainty. So as much as possible, leaders should plan and strategize.
Communication,
and clarity of decision, and not prolonging decisions that you have to take, however painful that they might be.
Absolutely. Some very actionable insights and very relevant advice to all leaders and, in fact, entrepreneurs who are listening to this. We're very short on time, but Saurabh, let me quickly ask you about the e-consultation service that you have started on the platform. How does it work, and what have you guys been doing to kind of cope with all the queries that you're getting in?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we have to ensure that a lot of doctors are now equipped to do online consultations. And we have seen a huge surge in patients seeking online consultation. Our team is working with these doctors to get more and more of them trained on how to use the platform, how to talk to patients using audio and video technologies, which they are already to somewhat familiar with. But on the second hand, what we are also doing is, as everybody is confined to their homes with limited physical activity, nutrition plays a far bigger role in keeping people healthy now.
Okay.
So the second thing what we are also doing is through GoodCart, which is a destination site to purchase healthy products. We're working hard to do doorstep delivery of immunity boosting products, multivitamins and supplements, along with healthy food items such as breakfast cereals to as many people as possible.
Okay, Dr. Sham, before I wrap up this conversation, let me quickly ask you about what about folks who are in the essential services, including my colleagues from the media fraternity, or healthcare workers who are at the front line. How should they cope up with stress and anxiety, especially keeping the fact in mind that you're on your job because you're required to be there, but then you go back home to folks and your family who's been in a lockdown, and it just adds up to that anxiety for everyone around them, their family members. So how do they cope with that?
Healthcare workers are particularly at risk. They have a higher risk for anxiety, depression, and suicide, substance abuse, and so on because of the factors you mentioned. They need to, take as much support from their colleagues and peers as much as possible, and also seek professional help from psychologists or psychiatrists, as the case might be. There shouldn't be any hesitation about doing that. And let me just say, the need of the hour, whether we're talking about healthcare or companies, is to invest in mental health moving forward.
Okay.
Clearly that's going to be really important, and every company, every organization needs to figure that in their budgets, because you need to keep the employees healthy, both physically and mentally.
Okay. So, organizations, and your recommendation is that organizations will have to budget for mental health consultations and for their employees. Well, thank you so much, Saurabh and Dr. Sham, for speaking to us on CNBC TV18. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Startup Street. More news and updates coming up for you on the other side.